What's up, man? I'm back. My live it was kind of screwing up, but I want to talk. I want to finish talking about the Chris Eubank Jr. versus James Degale matchup. Like I said, I didn't know this fight was brewing, but it's a fun fight. I want to see how much James Degale has left. His last four fights, he's been in some wars, took some big shots. That Badu Jack fight, I thought he took some really big shots in that fight. That was a real tough fight for him. And I just want to see what James DeGale got left. Now, James DeGale, if he has, that's if James DeGale has anything left as far as top level is concerned, coming there, nice slick boxer that he is, move around, use the ring, then Chris Eubank Jr. is going to be in big trouble because Chris Eubank Jr. has shown that he can't handle movement. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't handle um, he couldn't he couldn't handle the guys that he had trouble with. He could not handle their movement, man. George Groves, you know what I'm saying? Billy Joe Saunders just couldn't handle those guys' movement. And James DeGale is better than both of those fighters, in my opinion. Now, I know that George Groves beat James DeGale, but I just want to see how Chris Eubank Jr. solves the puzzle of James DeGale. Now, if Chris Eubank Jr. said in the press conference that he used to train himself, I heard rumblings of that he was training himself and all that stuff. That's ludicrous anyway. That he didn't have a trainer. Now he say all of a sudden he has a trainer this late in your career. He seems kind of arrogant. He comes off kind of arrogant. You know what I'm saying? A little bit. It could be some delusion up in there. You know what I'm saying? He's not as good as his father. His father was a really good fighter. Um, is it because he's from the UK and that's kind of how their persona is? It kind of look like they're arrogant, but they really not. But he comes off as being arrogant, and he said he's trying new things in a gym. Now my thing is this: when you have anytime a fighter has a new trainer or he's trying new things, you need a couple training camps. About you need some training camps to implement that style into your DNA because his DNA has been come forward, throw a lot of punches. When he gets in trouble, he's going to abort his new style and he's going to start doing what he normally does because that's in his DNA. You know what I'm saying? He's a come forward, balls to the wall fighter, throws a lot of punches. Now, can he win the fight? He can. To me, he can win the fight depending on how much James DeGale has left. This is all about James DeGale, how much James DeGale has left. And James DeGale said, in the press conference, he told you Ray Jr. that you expecting me to fade after six. You know what I'm saying? You are expecting to be down after six, and then you are expecting me to fade after six. And James DeGale has had problems in these last 4 or 5 fights of fading down the stretch. He was beaten. To me, he was beaten by the Jack comfortably, faded down the stretch. You know what I'm saying? And the guy Truex, he was beaten, faded down the stretch. So, is it a sign of old age? Is it a sign of you on the other side of that mountain? We will see. You know what I'm saying? We will see how it manifests itself, and we will see what James DeGale got left versus what Chris Eubank Jr. is bringing to the table different. My early prediction is I'm gonna give James DeGale a slight favorite because I'm gonna go off of James DeGale experience and the fact that he's a mover and a boxer, and that's what Chris Eubank Jr. has problems with. Obviously, the guys he lost to have movement, crafty in the ring, and can box. So, and Chris Eubank Jr. He's kind of flat-footed in the ring. You know what I'm saying? He he tries to be a power puncher, but he's really not a power puncher. He can punch. You know what I'm saying? He got a decent punch. But he likes to throw a lot of combinations. You know what I'm saying? He likes to try to sit down on every punch of his combination. And that leaves him open for counters. That leaves him standing there by himself, especially with a guy like James DeGale on his level that can move around and can box. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, who really needs to win? Chris Eubank Jr. needs this win. because every fight he stepped up, he lost. He stepped up against Billy Joe Saunders, he lost. He stepped up against um my guy I just said his name. He stepped up against him and he lost. You know what I'm saying? So George Groves and he lost. Chris Eubank Jr. needs this win. He needs a dominant win versus George Grove if he wants to get the fights that he wants. If he want to draw, you know what I'm saying, a eyes on him. Because if he loses this fight, just like George Grove said, if you lose this fight, man, where you gonna go from here? Because if you lose this fight, people are gonna look at it that you only can win domestic fights. You can't win other fights. All fight only fights that you have won so far are domestic fights. I'm not saying that he's a bad fighter, but you know, there's levels to everything, and maybe he's not at world level. You know what I'm saying? World class level. So Eubank Jr. needs this fight in the worst way, and I think he needs a dominant win. Depend Looking at how George Groves' last 4 or 5 fights, he needs a dominant win. Especially George Groves' last 3 fights where he kind of struggled mightily and lost, you know, up in there and got a draw up in there. So we'll see how it goes, man. I'm gonna be watching the fight. I don't know if it's gonna be, you know, if it's gonna, you know, be streaming on YouTube or it's gonna be on Box Nation. But I'm gonna search for it. I'm gonna watch it. I think it's a fun fight to see is if Chris Eubank Jr. can end George Groves, you know, run, or if George Groves can put Eubank Jr. only in a domestic, you know, category of a domestic fighter, and that's all he can do is, you know, win domestic fights. But I'm out, y'all.